Hey folks, how you doing out there? Waiting for that countdown. We're gonna do another Permascorz today on Drinking a Wink. Uh, Special, somewhat somber day, uh, Memorial Day and all that. So I figured we'll bring you the sixth Permascorz video and talk about one of an old favorite of an American whiskey. Uh, whose only problem I have it right now is the top cap of the cork came off. So I was able to use some thumb strength to get that out. Today we're going to talk about as number six. Like I said, a favorite. We've had it since the first time I bought it. It never leaves our shelves. We always replace it, bring it places. We're going to talk about Old Granddad, Bonded. Okay. Old Granddad is an interesting one. I have a kind of a funny relationship with it in a couple of ways. One, my dad is not a big drinker. Matter of fact, I don't think we ever shared a whiskey of any sort until he was into his late 70s when I started getting into it. It's not that he didn't drink; that wasn't his thing too much. And but then he used to tell me this story about I don't know exactly what it is, but I think maybe it was a sister or some wedding in the family where his father or my grandfather bought a case or something of that nature, a couple of cases or of Old Granddad bourbon. And he likes to tell that story, and ever since then, I will occasionally. I mean, he's not drinking too much now these days, but anything. But last couple of gatherings we were having, I'll bring up some Old Granddad or give him a bottle or something like that. And it's kind of a nice story for me. It's a nice little sweet little kind of story. I don't even know if it's true. It could have been Old Forester, could have been anything. But he remembers it, and I don't know if he remembers the actual liquid fondly, but he remembers the story fondly, and I enjoy that. The other aspect that I really enjoy about this is I'm not a big fan of these bourbons that we have to, well, A, hunt down, and then they're not quite as good as we're told, or they have a lot of kind of old world marketing or stories from like the old days, and this is this ex bourbon. You look around and the earliest producing or this and the longest lasting bourbon producer in Kentucky. That's kind of like looking like finding like a pizza place that says they have the best pizza in town. I mean, it's kind of ubiquitous. It's like the second thing you write on your menu or on your signage. But anyway, let me get to my point here. Looks like we're having a little bit of a slowdown. I don't know why. I've quit everything. So I've always liked Old Granddad because they don't do much with it. And by I mean the Beam Suntory company who owns this company, or who owns Old Granddad, the brand, as of I think 1987. I think that's when they bought it. They've had it a long time. And it is, in fact, if you read on the back, it's going to say, and it's going to be at the Old Granddad Distillery Company, Claremont, Kentucky. Now, that is where Jim Beam's distillery is. So this is produced at the Jim Beam Distillery. The other fascinating thing I find with that is if we look at the brands from, might as well drink some whiskey. We look at the brands that Beam Suntory has. They, of course, are going to have all the Jim Beam lines. And they've been doing some things like the 7-year, which is somewhere back there. And while I'm leaning, they also have the Knob Creek series, which I'm a huge fan of. And the Bookers and Bakers. And if there's a candlestick maker that they've named a bourbon after, I'm sure that'll come out soon later. And also Basil Hayden is owned by Beam Suntory. Now, a little bit about Basil Hayden. some of you will know this, but Basil Hayden has become a very trendy bourbon. People seem to like the packaging and the embossed thing and the little like bee that pops out of it. It's all very good, very cool. Bottom line is they don't Basil Hayden all the Basil Hayden products, unless it's mentioned as being a cast strength. I don't even know I have that. I don't follow it because most of the stuff they put out is at a premium price tag bottled at 40% ABV. I'm not a big fan of that. So you might have noticed me talk about Basil Hayden for kind of like, it's not bad bourbon. It's tasty bourbon. It's just that if someone wants to give me that bourbon, I'll take it. But if you're buying that for yourself, just keep in mind that you are paying what I would consider to be about $10 for the label and then embossed thing and some writer to be very creative about the story. Well, we know this to be true because on this bottle of Old Grandad is a picture of one Mr. Basil Hayden. Okay, Basil Hayden was a bourbon producer, and then that was sold down to the distillery was sold to. I'm not going to get this whole story right, but sold down to the son, and then the third. Okay, the grandson actually created this thing. Okay, Old Grandad, and that again is Basil Hayden. They don't have that listed here anymore, but that's who that is in the picture. Okay, so it's very interesting. And then Jim Beam again, like I said, produces a second distillate or second bourbon named Basil Hayden, and then they have all their different series. So the other thing that I just find kind of intriguing is, let's talk about what this is. This is a bottled in bond, so this is in second in their series. They have a 40 proof, just Old Grandad, which runs around $18, $19. Sometimes you can get them cheaper. Then, kind of, I think for me, the flagship, or at least the one you see the most, or that I buy the most, is the Old Grandad bonded in bond. Now, that's going to give us a lot of straight ahead of information. First of all, it's got to be bottled in bond. It's going to be 100 proof or 50% ABV. It's got to be aged at least 4 years. Okay, we know that to be true because that's what bottled and bond means. And bottled and distilled, the same distillery. There's other stuff about it, but essentially that's the second one in the tier. The third one in that tier is the 114, which is a lot of fans. There's a lot of fans of that one as well. Okay, completely different label. The Old Grandad, just regular 40, and this label look very similar. But for a very long time, that's where it ended. Okay, a nice, decent whiskey. The other thing to note about this one is, well, let me hold that off. And while Dean Suntory has done all kinds of things, like I said, adding the 7-year-old of the Jim Beam, and there are many different type of Jim Beam, this and that, and we see all these over right there. I have 4 Knob Creeks right there. The bourbon, the rye. I have the Bourbon Times rye. I have one of their real fancy. Oh, it's right in the front. This one, okay. It's really good. They do a lot of different things. Booker's and Baker's is kind of a limited edition run. In this portfolio, they have the Olds, which is Old Grandad and Old Overholt Rye. I don't have any of that around. I don't think. I have the A Overholt up there, but I don't have the standard kind of cheapo Old Overholt Rye. But that's what they do. And what has always kind of intrigued me is that there's just a lot of talk about the Knob Creeks and the big presentation, and the labels all look kind of hip and interesting and all that. Basil Hayden, obviously, and they just leave this label the same way, and they haven't touched it forever. And to me, it is, if not far superior, it is just as good as some of those other things that other products from Jim Beam that I just mentioned, at a significantly better price. So that's what's always kind of intrigued me about this. The other thing that's always mentioned, or it's always mentioned for this, is that Old Grandad has always had the reputation of being a high rye bourbon. That's why I like it. That's why sometimes I can get Michelle to drink it every once in a while. The mash bill in this one is 63% corn, 27% rye, and 10% malted barley. That 27% rye is a really, really big number. Even a 70% corn to 20% rye and 10% malted barley would still be considered a high rye. You know, most of the, I think both of, no, I 95% know this to be certain. All of the non-weeded offerings from the Buffalo Trace Company. So we're talking about all the ones that we could, you know, they're kind of over here, the Blantons and Elmer Tea. They have two different mash bills. Both of them have different rye contents. Both of them are in the teens. So this at 27% is really going to give us a different taste profile, and that's maybe why if it isn't that it's quote unquote better, who knows? That's why it might be a standout. And again, at worth $25 for this bottle, I think it's a great deal, and I think that's part of the reason why I've always had it on the shelf, along with the kind of little slightly more, you know, cutesy or nostalgic things that I brought up. On the nose, there's obviously a corn bourbon note there. That's not going to be a surprise. What we do get is a good blast of what I would say. This is not a grassy and earthy rye smell, but the scent definitely comes through, and it gives it a little bit more of a camphor note, or a little bit of a. I'm kind of losing my. Yeah, like if you would, let's say. Well, it would be actually like spices, and I got a bunch of spices right here. Think of maybe if if you're making a pie of certain sort, let's say a pumpkin pie, and you were kind of combining cinnamon and nutmeg. If you went really heavy on the cinnamon and had a little bit of nutmeg versus kind of flipping that's what's happening here. This is bourbon, like in my analogy. This is pumpkin pie. But I can tell that there is a spiciness here because of this high rye content in this mash bill. A bigger sniff. You can get a little bit of a... This is interesting to do it in this glass versus my normal glass. A little bit more of a buttery note on the end of that nose on the taste. Lots of cinnamon. A little bit of darkness, charred darkness, a little leathery note, kind of as it moves into the finish. That nuttiness that comes out of the Jim Beam distillery is still there on this. That is not, if you like that, whether you're talking about Jim Beam or Knob Creek, it's still there. Second taste, you get a little bit more of a tobacco note. You get a little bit more of the cask note there. It's just very tasty. I'm gonna put a drop of water in there. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting how this is just a very pleasant bourbon. Maybe drinks a little hot, but you know that's what you get when you buy 50% ABV or 100 proof bourbon. If your first sip has you thinking, boy, this is too spicy for me. It's not sweet enough. I would try some water. I wouldn't go too far though. That water that drop and a half or 2 drops of water did change. I don't have that much in the glass, so did change things a little bit. I'm not. I would not. I'm not at. Take two on that. I'm not adding water to mine glasses of Old Granddad bonded. You can. It it does mute the spices, but it gives it a little bit more of a. It also mutes the sweetness and gives it a little bit of a dry hint, a little bit of a. Actually, oddly, a little bit of a beer flavor. Adding water, I didn't get it in the first part. That could also be a little bit of the kind of the funkiness that high rye bourbons give us. It's tasty. Uh, the only thing that's interesting about this, if you're used to that kind of big corn, not sweet, but just that feeling of how corn can be sweet and also have that kind of effect on the finish, this doesn't have it as much. So that is one aspect of this. Okay, but overall, this is going to always stay on my shelf because A, it's tasty on its own. I'll drink this all night. Okay, I'm not going to, but it's a it's nice as a sipper. You can add a cube to this, and because it's 100%, it's still going to be it's still going to be bourbon, and at 50%, good bartenders like to use a bonded or a 50% ABV bourbon in their cocktails. Average Showtime bartenders who tell you that Basil Hayden is the best one to be used in the bar, and I know a couple of bars that still kind of claim that, do not know what they're talking about. That's just the bottom line. They can tell you that, but they're probably not all that good. You can fight me that, and if you are a good bartender and you're like, what is this guy talking about? Basil Hayden is the best. Please let me know why one would feel that way. But again, if you're gonna make a cocktail, I would want something that has that 50% punch. Most good bartenders want that. So there you go. And we also have an option here with the rye. Just one last thing, I did mention that while we get new offerings and single barrel selects of Knob Creek, and you're going to get the annual offerings of Booker's and Baker's, and those are going to be very expensive, and you might see them in a restaurant, or you might find a bottle at your store. And I had just said that for a very long time it seemed like old Granddad was just languishing at the 80%. I know you saw it. I'm just joking around here. 80% bonded version of 114. Then last July, they released what they're calling a limited edition annual release. So they're trying to get in on some of these other companies that do that with the Bookers, and then kind of in the same mindset as maybe some of the Buffalo Trace stuff. Okay. So they released this in July of last year. I don't know if you would still find it on the shelf right now, but if it's going to be an annual limited release, you could be looking for this soon. I remember getting this, and I already broke one cork tonight. I remember buying this and thinking, oh, I was really excited about trying to find this, and when I did, I was really into it. Like I said, I've always liked this. I'm going to give you actually, let me get rid of this. So this is the same thing. It's bottle and bond. It just aged a few extra years. I don't know if there's any other change other than that. Okay? But like I said, this is their new, this is the Beam Suntory's new, the refresher on the old Granddad lineup. Okay. I will say this: some extra time in a barrel has mellowed out some of those spicier notes. It's interesting. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. Old Granddad Bottle and Bond regular straight up is a big kind of spicy explosion, and then by the time it gets into the finish, it's rather it mellows out and is rather tame by the end. This is the exact opposite. Strange. Now, I did just drink the other one. When I drink this, I'm kind of looking for flavors that I'm not finding drinking the old one. And then as it sits a little longer, maybe when it gets to the back of the tongue, and now some of this extra time, which has added some vanilla and it's a charred barrel, so it's some of those that kind of sweetness, that starts to pop up a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know if anyone has tried this and would agree with me in comparison to the regular bonded. Equal money, which doesn't make any sense. But let's say you blinded this on me, I'm probably going to take. I'm probably not going to ask for this one. So that's me. Okay, you might love it. Just personal opinion. The 7-year when it was out, it was in the 40 some dollar range, maybe just 40, but 40, 41, 40, something like that. I will not buy another one of these again. Not because I hate it. It's just I don't see the value in it. I kind of like this one as tastes a little bit more old school. This aging it for 7 does not always mean that it's quote unquote better. It's making it trying to be a little more smooth and a little more palatable. And hey, who knows? Does anyone know a grandfather who gets smoother and more mellow with age? Not my dad, who's a grandfather. Yeah, the thread on this thing is a little bit wonky, but you get it. So I don't know that I would buy the 7, and it's not going to be a Permshelf. But Granddad's Bottled and Bond, old Granddad Bottled and Bond, is going to be a Permshelf all the time. I just like it. It's really fun. I visited the granddad today. Not my granddad, but he's a grandpa. My dad. And we did talk a little bit about that. Again, it's always very funny. It pops up every so often. He wants to talk about old granddad fondly, which we can do all day. So, on this Memorial Day, we'll remember those that gave their ultimate sacrifice. But we will also remember ones that are still around and ones who served, like my dad and Michelle's father. We'll just be very much, the past and the living. And also, this will. I have no jokes today because it is Memorial Day. And I also just read a little while ago. I think I read it on John Richardson's page, if he's still watching my videos, that Sonny Rollins, one of the greatest jazz tenor saxophone players ever, passed away. He was 95, but this is, obviously that's a wonderful long life. But as a jazz musician and fan, there's not many of those that we can consider that were in the first couple of generations of jazz and bebop innovators around anymore. We lost Roy Haynes last year, I think. Maybe it was a little more, but Al Foster, who played a ton with Sonny Rollins, passed away. I don't know, what was that? Was that 6 months ago? I'm losing track. Jack DeJohnette, who also did some great recording with Sonny Rollins. It's been a tough year. Yeah, a lot of these gentlemen were a little older, but so here's a tribute to. How about we talk about old Hover? Just olds everywhere, living, and those that have left us. It's the best I can do. We'll see you, folks. Have a good one.